It is the Lisa and Jennifer show. Super excited to join you guys today. I am joined by Lisa Compton. She is the senior marketing and sales manager, dealing with all of the security products over at SonicWall. She and I go back about 3 or 4 years from before Solutions Granted was part of SonicWall. So we are going to talk about the journey that a lot of marketing and sales professionals go through, which is getting into a role and realizing just how many details there are, how many moving pieces and moving parts there are, how many personalities that you have to deal with when you're managing your go-to-market team on the marketing side and the sales side. And we have titled this From Chaos to Clarity, because Lisa was one of the few people that was able to trial Channel Sales Accelerator just when it was first getting started. So Lisa, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be with me today.
Oh my gosh, of course. It's always a pleasure and such a treat anytime I get to spend time with you, Jen. So always a treat when I get to see your face too.
I totally agree. We were just saying that we might see each other in Dallas in, man, I think that's like a month away, the Channel Pro event. So that time is flying. I cannot believe it's February already.
I know.
So
So February's kicking up fast. We have like a Boom right around the corner and like
yes,
quite a few other shows coming up. So excited to be back on the road and see faces like yourself and other people that we know, like, and love in the channel.
I love it. So give a little bit of your background. And I know, because I know you've been in sales and marketing. I think you've gone back and forth a couple of times. So give us a running start, and then we'll talk a little bit more about your journey.
Sure. So yeah, so I have bounced back and forth between sales and marketing quite a few times. Actually, I've been a channel account manager. I've done sales for sponsorships back when I was at Seven Figure MSP. Then I've transitioned back into the marketing role when I started at Solutions Granted, a little over about 2 years ago, actually. Coming back into marketing is always interesting to kind of see where a company currently sits with its marketing assets and what they have already going on. Not to rip and replace that, but to kind of build a stronger brand from that. So, sometimes getting, it's like, I used to say, like, it's like drinking from a fire hose, like the first, I would say 6 months, because you're still getting a handle on that. And sometimes it's really, hard when you feel like you're I was the marketing person at Solutions Granted.
Yeah. So
So not having.
let's park there a little bit, because before you got acquired, you were the only marketing and sales leader. And so you were managing the sales team, you were managing the marketing, prepping for dozens of trade shows. I'm not sure how many Solutions Granted was going to, but it was quite a few every year. Not that unusual for many vendors in this space. And so
Yeah.
let's talk about how you managed your time, how some of the common challenges that you ran into when it was just the Lisa show. And then we're going to pivot over to what it was like after you were acquired.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's like a funny meme I think I sent you. Like, obviously, if you know me, I'm a huge Disney nut. But it's like when when he like looks over and he's like, all you can see, it's like all things marketing are yours. Everything the light touches is yours. And it's like I said, feels like you're drinking from a fire hose, but being able to work with someone, because coming on, they didn't really have anybody who understood marketing very well. So Solutions Granted was actually working with you, Jen, for a little bit of the sales coaching. And then, I come in guns blazing with these like very strategic marketing funnels and plans that I want to implement that I think we're a little bit overwhelming on the sales side.
Mm-hmm.
So it was nice to have, to be able to work with you to put those pieces together so it ran seamlessly and actually sales saw benefit from it, right? Where sales and marketing are always, clashing and butting heads, but you can't have one without the other. It's impossible.
Yeah, 100%. And I know a conversation we had from several different angles was the conversation about, okay, you're getting ready to go pitch an idea to your manager or the CEO or whoever you report to. Let's look at it from their perspective. Because to me, as a sales coach, like every conversation is a sales conversation. So I was able to say, okay, here's how a CEO is going to look at this. How are we going to overcome that objection? What are you going to say when Michael says this? How did your last campaign, is that a good example, or do we not want to bring that example up? And so being able to act as that sounding board for you was a lot of fun for me, because anytime you're in the trenches and especially when you're solo and you are juggling all the things, there's not a whole lot of time to think strategically. You're just frantically just throwing things, got to get things shipped for the next show and get them back from the previous show. And oops, something got lost in the mail. And like all of those logistics add to the stress of a marketing director.
Oh my gosh, yes. And again, if any of you know me, I have like some of the craziest ideas, like poor Michael Crane. I'm pretty sure I gave him like mini heart attacks the first year I worked
Okay,
for him.
share one or two of your public ideas that actually got approved and people saw them.
Okay, so we've had a few really good ones. So the first one that I think Michael he was very nervous, I will say, was DattoCon, not in 2024, but in 2023 when we went with a spinoff of Baywatch. We did Breach Watch, and I had everybody in lifeguard outfits, and we had the cardboard cutout of David Hasselhoff. We had
I remember
lifeguard
the
too.
cardboard cutout. Thank you very much.
And yeah, and so, having this idea, I'll say I was a little bit nervous to go to it with Michael. But I was like, I really think this is going to help us stand out. I think it's what we need and the brand needs to help build. But being able to have somebody, like Jen, who worked with Michael, so she's able to kind of say, well, here's exactly what Michael's going to say.
Yes.
So I can have kind of a conversation with Michael without even bothering him. And then I can show up with like I call it a foolproof plan. And we went with it. He was nervous and it worked really well. And now he kind of lets me run wild and free with most of my crazy ideas. But there are times where I won't lie, I'll be in an amusement park and I want to text Michael, but I text Jen instead. Because I'm like, oh my gosh. Another one is Super Mario. We did that at DattoCon actually this last year. And I was at Super Mario World the year before, and I was like blowing Jen up because I was like, oh, they have these bands, and I can add gamification, and we can do a giveaway, and I was essentially brain dumping on her, if you will, but she was able to kind of understand conceptually what I was trying to do from a sales and marketing standpoint, and
Yes.
then again, we were able to put it together. I was able to approach Michael and the rest of the SonicWall team with that. And we were able to execute that extremely successly.
And I know there have been a couple of other times, we won't go into details, or I'm like, go ahead and sleep on that for a day or two. I don't know that you're going to like it tomorrow morning. Or just, how are you going to deal with this? Or what about this? Have you thought about this challenge? What are you going to do if the people right across the booth or the hallway from you do something similar? All of those logistical challenges. So,
Oh, yeah. I mean, even this year, like getting ready for Ride of Boom, like the theme that we were initially going to go with, all the wildfires broke out in California, and I had to really pivot very last minute, and being able to do that in a strategic way versus having 1,000 things flying all over the place and stressing out, the sea levels that we have that are attending. Like, I need them to worry about their presentations and setting up meetings. Like, they don't need to be a part of this chaos, but it will play into how well the show is executed as a whole.
Yes. And so what you're talking about now is post acquisition. So now you are part of the SonicWall team. Solutions Granted was acquired by SonicWall. And now you're not one of one, you're one of many. And so I was able to continue working with the team after that acquisition. So share with people how that acquisition went, how the change felt, how did that feel to you? And then maybe one or two of the conversations you and I have had since the acquisition.
Yeah, so acquisitions are always interesting, right? Because, me, the one and only marketer going into a team of many, was a little bit daunting at first, but I also was able to look at the huge upside that we were able to be bigger and better and more powerful and have better reach, by being acquired by a global company that had more marketing resources than just myself. So being able to, learn different personalities and mesh into a brand new team can sometimes be challenging. The Sonic Wall team was very welcoming. But again, I think, instead of Michael having small heart attacks, the marketing team started having small heart attacks at
Yes.
some of my big ideas that I was having. And I'm very passionate. So I'm like, oh my gosh, so being able again to not direct that like I'm talking to Michael, but direct that as I'm talking to a team of marketers, right?
Yes.
And have them understand the benefit of the value in why doing things differently than they've traditionally been doing them. Again, pivoting a little bit, like why it could bring a positive change for the Sonic Wall brand as well.
Well, and you were as you're pivoting and you're presenting new ideas to new team members that you've never met before, then you're also meshing systems and you're blending messaging and you're playing with new logos and new colors and how do we gradually sunset the old logo and bring in the new logo and the old trade show and the new and the all the things. And so that concept of blending the two companies together is not, it's fraught with challenges. I mean, it doesn't
Oh,
matter if both companies are amazing. In this case, both companies were amazing. Everybody was rowing in the same direction, but for a while, it's you're rowing two canoes in the same direction, and you're trying to make it become a single canoe, which is challenging. It's just hard.
yeah, it really is. And, and sometimes, you get in a room of marketers and one person thinks they know better than the other, or, and sometimes I tend to be very highly opinionated about the tools, that I had implemented on the solutions granted side. So, coming up with a use case on why we needed to implement what I'm proposing versus what someone else or they already had in place, um,
And I
and
know
making
you and I had
sure.
a couple of conversations about that, like pros and cons, and let's look at it from the side of the executives. Why are they digging their heels in? It's not just because they're stubborn. There's a reason. What is that? Is that valid? Is it not? Should they switch to your system? And so just having that sounding board is so important. So I guess it can be a
And
little
you were
lonely.
able to help me have a better level of understanding because, like, for the most part, it makes sense to me in terms of integrations and connectivity. But we like I've never been an executive in a business before, right?
Mhm.
I'm still working my way up and crawling on the ground and doing all things. So having, yeah, again, somebody that can provide that kind of mindset that you're going up against. Not that it's a battle, but if it's something that you do feel passionately and strongly about, like, don't not say anything, right? Because
Yes.
sometimes there's been times where we've been able to save, SonicWall a lot of money by implementing something. But then, they've come in with a lot of other tools to help. I'll say on the webinar side and on the lead gen side in terms of pipelines, which was amazing because I'm like, oh my gosh, it was like a kid in a candy store, almost like I don't know what to touch first.
Yes, yes. Okay, so we've spent a good amount of time on marketing. Let's shift over to sales. You mentioned it's important for sales and marketing to be on the same page, and for sales and marketing to to agree on messaging and languaging, and we've got marketing that's planning the trade shows, but then often sales is running them or co-running them with marketing. So let's shift and talk a little bit about the sales side, because that's really where Channel Sales Accelerator comes in, is helping with the individual sellers and helping with the senior sales leaders. So when you came into Solutions Granted and we first started working together, what did you see as far as changes in the sales team as a result of working with me and getting coached by me?
Yeah, so we had a really good sales team in place. Like they understood the business. They were at Solutions Granted for a significant amount of time. But again, coming at them with a new way of doing things, right? Sometimes they don't always new isn't always better, right? And they were already doing a fantastic job as an MSSP within the United States and Canada, of executing, and their sales were at like astronomical. Um, and I'll say from a marketing perspective, I am very different from most marketers. And this is where, I've told you 1,000 times, I'm like, I feel like a bull in a china shop. But if marketing's doing its job correctly, they should fill sales calendar, right? And that's something that is sometimes very hard for sales leaders to hear, right? Making 100 phone calls a day versus, something else more strategic we can do, right? There is a better way to do things. And having, when you have sales executives, like Michael Crane, a very, very busy guy, he doesn't always have the time that he would like to spend with his team to be able to, handle some objections. I mean, Michael makes himself as available as possible,
Sure.
but, post acquisition, he got 3 or 4 times more busy than ever. And, having somebody there for the salespeople to be able to handle those objections and lean on, especially in a time of transition, was really important.
Yeah, and
Because
you
again, I
mentioned,
didn't have the time.
well, yeah, you've mentioned time a couple of several times, and that is one of the things that I hear over and over again, is that it's no surprise to the senior sales leader, that CRO or the CEO, whoever's leading sales, that the sales team needs constant reassurance, constant retraining, constant training, up front. Like you said, objection handling. Sometimes you have to pick them up when they've had a horrendous day or a horrendous week, or 6 people in a row yelled at them, or they got no showed 8 sales calls in a row, like all of those things. And it doesn't come as a surprise to that
Mhm.
leader that part of their job is to train their team. What does sometimes come as a surprise is how thinly they are going to be spread. They've got
Mhm.
board meetings, they've got training the team, they've got hiring and firing, like depending on the way that the organization is structured. So, did any of the sellers on the Solutions Granted side have any thoughts as far as like having access to Channel Sales Accelerator and having access to some sales coaching? And how did they feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Michael only got busier, right? As did I, as did a lot of people. And so having somebody that understands the channel. And it's always funny, people ask, I get a lot of calls from other vendors, what do you look for in a sales or marketing person? And what shows are you going to? What are you basing your ROI on? And the thing that I really see the most is just because we come from the channel, like no two channel companies are the same, right? So just because like my background, as you know, is I was in VoIP for 8 years before I worked for seven figure MSP and then on to Solutions Granted. Just because I worked for a VoIP company, I went to several VoIP companies. Doesn't mean I know everything because I've been in VoIP, right? And going from vendor to vendor or taking on new services or products, right? Sometimes that becomes a challenge, right? Because it's a new learning curve for the salespeople. And having somebody who understands like channel account management, I would say,
Mm.
to a very hardcore, because like I said, you're going to have to evolve that based off where you go and what you're doing and what your role is. But being able to have somebody to help you with that evolution is so much easier than trying to figure it out by yourself.
Well, it's interesting when we were first starting Channel Sales Accelerator, you were one of a handful of people that I shared the vision with. And you were so excited, and you've always been so supportive anyway, in general, but specifically about the Channel Sales Accelerator side of things. And you've mentioned a lot of those reasons: training for the sellers, training specifically for roles. You know, the account managers, they do things differently than the BDRs or SDRs do, who do different things than the account execs. And then we throw sales engineers in there, and they are a completely different piece of the puzzle, very important, but they sell in a very different way, and their
Yep.
job is very different. So I know you get these phone calls all the time from vendors, but do you remember, like 6 months or a year ago when we first talked, what were some of the things that you were the most excited about as far as Channel Sales Accelerator?
I was so excited because, I've been in the channel for a long time now, and we see all of these sales and marketing. You hear Robin Robbins, Gary Pica, all of these sales and marketing assets and resources for the MSP, which is great. Right. But when you look at it from a vendor standpoint, like who's there to support vendors from that sales and marketing standpoint and help them grow within their own businesses? Like we're all out here trying to help the MSP, which is great. But until we're the best we can be, we can't be the best for them.
Mm.
So having that, constant is in that development as a sales or marketing person, right? So it was so exciting that you were thinking about the vendors because I'm like, nobody thinks about the vendors.
I love it. And it was interesting as we started doing market research internally, we saw like the channel chiefs, who would come in and take over as chief revenue officer, or even sometimes the face of the company, which is fine. That's like one extreme. And for some organizations, that's a great fit. It's not a fit for every organization. It wouldn't have been a fit for Solutions Granted. Michael liked being the face of Solutions Granted. He loved being on stage. He wasn't ready to go hands off on his baby. Like Solutions Granted was still very much like he wanted to hold on to the reins. And so that's the one extreme, is for the companies that a channel chief is ideal for. There's channel chiefs. And then at the other extreme are some channel coaches who will come out and do maybe they'll speak at your sales kickoff, or they'll do a 30-day engagement and then they leave. Well, humans being who humans are, we don't tend to remember everything much longer than after that 30-day engagement is gone. And then there's
Yeah.
this vast chasm in the middle where nobody's helping the vendors. There is no ongoing coaching and training and resources for the vendors. So yeah,
I mean, and CompTIA has their, channel account management training.
yep.
And I mean, I've done all levels of CAM training multiple times, but at some point it's like, again, no two companies are the same. So I can do those CAM worksheets and I can redefine my diamonds in the rough and my cash cows, right? Like that's all great and dandy, but what happens when you're looking to take a step up and do something more expansive than you've done before? Like
Yeah.
that becomes a little bit scary, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like, the vendors don't have a resource for that. Like, and that's where, I know Gary Pica, Robin Robbins, they're real, they're always willing to answer questions about that. But in terms of having an actual program similar to what we offer MSPs, that's that constant training and making sure that you're perfecting what you're doing based off what you're selling and doing.
Yes. And like you
Mhm.
said, it is unique. Like, yes, the selling fundamentals do not change from company to company, but how to execute on it, how do I apply those fundamentals to my company, my team structure, the product or solution that I'm selling, that's where there has to be some customization. So even
Yeah.
taking a course or reading a book is not going to be enough. There needs to be some one-on-one application. So
Exactly. I mean, and even coming from Solutions Granted as a brand to SonicWall as a brand, like if you look at the two side by side, drastically different looking, right? So for me, like I know I leaned on you a lot in terms of, is my crazy idea going to be on brand now?
yes.
Right? For the bigger, larger global scale. Cause now I have to think bigger and broader than what I was doing before.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So if you're watching live, you can see I dropped a link on the screen, mspsalesrevolution.com/CSA hyphen details. That is Channel Sales Accelerator hyphen details. And you can download a dossier, tells you everything about Channel Sales Accelerator, all of the things we have in place today, everything that is coming soon. And we have 9 beta spots available. And one thing that we're adding to those beta people that will not be there long term is that they actually are going to get twice a month coaching with myself and my director of sales, Trevor Thomas. And so that is one-on-one private, in addition to all of the other opportunities of ongoing training, ongoing coaching, a community that we have set up. So we have 9 beta spots, and they are going quickly, but it's going to be amazing. We've got 9 left. So any,
I mean,
yeah, go ahead,
I
Lisa.
just think that that's so amazing because like I said, like as vendors, like I feel like there is not enough resources out there to help and to expect a sales manager to, I don't want to necessarily say handhold, but sometimes that's what it takes to, bring someone where you really know they can be. Like I know a lot of sales managers, like I see a lot of potential in this guy, but
Yes.
they don't have the time to refine that diamond in the rough, really. And that's where, if you can have that extra resource to lean on instead of constantly giving your boss small heart attacks like I did with poor Michael for a little while until, we were working with Jen very strategically. It just helps you grow as well because you have a community here. Yes, we work maybe for different vendors, but we're all here to support the MSP community as a whole.
It's
All the
interesting. You brought up something that I think I want to kind of drill into a little bit. We had talked earlier about these sales leaders really not having as much time as they would like to train their team. And that is valid, but sometimes it does come down from, it's like a trickle down effect where the person that sales leader reports to cannot train the sales leader. And so we've got training for the sales leader all the way down to the individual contributors. And so that's also something that makes us a little different. It's not a shot in the arm. It's a 6-month to 1-year engagement to give the whole sales organization a lift, to hit your quotas faster, pipeline velocity, all of the things that have to be. We're spinning a whole lot of plates in the sales department, and we've got to keep them all spinning very well and optimally. So I think that point was very valid.
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard sometimes, like as much as we try to keep these MSPs up to date with the latest and greatest, like we have to be up to date with that too, sales and marketing wise, right? And
Yes.
sometimes, like I know sometimes when I'm especially evaluating platforms, I'm like, hey, have you used this? What has your experience been like? Or maybe I get stuck in something and you're like, oh yeah, I've done this and it's like a super easy fix, right? And
Yeah.
that's just so helpful. Is if I were to go to like Michael would be like, I have no idea what you're talking about because he
Figure
doesn't,
it out.
he has no, yeah, he'd be like, your guess is as good as mine. And then I'm like, you don't want to scramble. Like we just want to get it figured out. And if we can, that benefits everybody sometimes, and that's okay.
And that outsider looking in, I was just talking to a client yesterday, and we put a very simple campaign in place. And once I sketched it out for him, he said, okay, that makes a whole lot of sense, but I don't think I ever would have thought of that because I'm in the weeds. I'm busy doing all of the things. And so that's part of the value of having a coach or a consultant is to say,
Mhm.
hey, have you thought about this? Or do you know that was a year ago that you did that wildly successful thing? Maybe it's time we do that again. And it's like, how has it been a year? That type of thing, that having that outside third party to give feedback on is so helpful. So
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like it is. It's just it's so helpful. And another thing I hear from a lot of MSPs, especially after trade shows, they'll make some post on Facebook or LinkedIn like like stop having your salespeople call me like they all sound the same or whatever. Like they're listen to them. They're telling you that what you're doing marketing and sales wise is not working.
I love that.
And that's
And so that
okay.
means, how do you fix that? You sound different. Make sure that your unique selling proposition, your messaging, your go to market is different because you want to stand out. You don't want to sound like wah 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 wah, which
Yeah,
too
stand
often in a
out.
trade show. Yeah, please stand out just a little bit. Yes, totally
Yeah,
agree.
I mean, I think I told you this back in the day, like one of the like most unique sales things I used to do is I bought a bunch of baby shoes, which is really weird, but I would send it with like a note from myself and like a branded thing, and I would say just trying to get my foot in the door.
Nice.
Back in the cold call, cold like knocking on doors days, but the amount of response I got from that, like people still send me pictures of the baby shoe to this day, and I'm like, oh, can't believe you still have that.
And
It's kind of creepy.
nobody else was doing that, right? So you stand out. I'm on someone else's list outside of the industry, and they also do some very clever mailings. And one of them was a pack of cookies, and they're like, if you think this is sweet, you should see our whatever the offer was. I don't even recall now. And just those types of things are sometimes enough to at least get the MSP to pause, the MSSP to say, maybe it is time for me to look at a different solution or up level my solution stack. And so anything that will create a little bit of an edge, or even the wedge
Yeah.
technique is awesome from a sales standpoint, how to get your competition fired without saying anything bad about them. So it's, again, just having some out of the box conversations can be really helpful.
Yeah. And like I said, if what you're doing today isn't working, like, and you don't know how to fix it, like, that's okay. That's
Yes.
why there's people like Jen that like understand, right? Like, she's very, very on top of the direction that the channel is going, what's working, what's not working. And again, sometimes I don't have, I'm like, hey, was your results with this? Because I'll see stuff. I'm the worst to watch TV or look at ads with because I critique it, but I'm like, oh, this one was really good. Like I got your banner ad, I was on YouTube. This is great. But yeah, it's like how do stand out? And I mean, having again to bounce the crazy ideas off of if you don't want to take them to the big scale sales executive or C-level, like totally get that. I'm one of those.
Right. And,
Um,
I can't say enough good about having Trevor on the team as well. Like, this is a lot more than just the Jennifer show. Obviously that's where it started a year ago, but Trevor's got a wealth of experience when it comes to growing smaller vendors very, very quickly, working with some mid-sized vendors, growing them as well. He's been in the SaaS space. He's worked probably as many trade shows as me, if not more. So
yeah, I
we've
was gonna
really
say
got,
I've bounced some of my crazy ideas off of Trevor, and there's been some where he's like, I don't think you should do that.
if
Uh,
Trevor says they're too crazy, they're too crazy.
yes, but I need the sounding board because like as fun and as you and Trevor are, and but sometimes you're like you are able to sometimes like Trevor and you've been like, oh, did you think about X, Y, and Z though? And I'm
Yes.
like, I did not,
Yeah.
and had I not, I'm like, that could have looked really bad for SonicWall.
Yeah. Awesome.
So
Excellent. Any last thoughts as we wrap things up?
Um, I would just say that if you're, you're finding or you're needing support for your sales and or marketing people, just to add an extra layer, right? We tell these MSPs more layers of security. Like more layers of doing things differently and bringing your brand to a different level from both sales and marketing, right? But again, the channel is evolving every day. So, like, we need to evolve with it on the sales and marketing side. And I'm just so excited that you're doing this for the vendor community because, like I've said, it's just a lack of resources that we have on the vendor side. But this is so exciting. And if you guys are having those struggles within your own MSPs or your own companies here on the vendor side, like reach out to Jen. She's just such an awesome resource.
I appreciate it. Oh man, thank you so much for your time, Lisa, and everyone who is watching. If you want details on Channel Sales Accelerator, you can see the URL on the screen. Go there, download the PDF, check out the details. We're happy to reach out to you and answer any questions. And we do have 9 beta spots available, and that gives you some time. I was going to say one-on-one. It's technically 2-on-1 because it's Trevor and I in the room with the senior sales leader and anybody from the team that you want to bring in. So that is only for the next 9 beta people. And then that offer goes in the vault because that does not scale. But right now we are doing things that don't scale so that we can continue to grow the business. So Lisa, I'm going to let you get back to your very, very busy day, but thank you again for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jen. Appreciate you and looking forward to seeing you on the road very